Hi, it's Len Cariou here. I'm in a play called Harry Townsend's Last Stand, playing Harry Townsend, and I'm here to talk about mishaps and memories. It's a two-hander, so there's myself and Craig Bierko. It's a man in his mid-80s, and his son is trying to get him to move out of his home because he can't live alone anymore. And Harry is fighting tooth and nail to stay in his home. And it's a very funny play, and also a very poignant play. And I think it's going to hit close to home to a lot of people. Applause. 50 years ago, Applause opened. It was my first original Broadway musical. We won the Tony Award for Best Musical, and I was even nominated as Best Actor. But I did not win. And I think the reason I didn't win was because at one matinee, I sang the opening song, and out of the corner of my eye, I could see some of the girls in the first row, and they're talking to one another, and I'm a little distracted, and I keep looking down like that. And Miss Bacall and I are up on the stage, and she's looking at me and going, "What's going on?" And she looks down at them, and then she looks at me, and she starts to laugh. My fly was open, and my shirt was sticking out. And when I saw that, I did a quick turnaround, stuck it in, did the zipper up and came back and said, "So flash that famous smile." When I was doing Henry V in 1969 at Stratford, Connecticut, during that summer, I auditioned for Applause. And I auditioned once in June, and then in July, and then in August. And I thought, what is going on with these people? The last audition that I did was, I think, in September or August, or something like that. And everybody was there. Miss Bacall, the producer, the Comden and Green, Strauss and Adams, they were all going to be there the last time. And Ron, of course. And so Ron says to me, he says, "Len, if it were up to me, I would offer you the role right now, but it's not." I said, "These guys have to offer the role, and I can't do it." I said, "But you're really the guy that I want." And he said, "And please remind me what it is you're doing now." And I just pointed across the street, and there were 3 6-foot photographs of me playing Henry V. And I said, "That's what I'm doing." And he went, "Oh my God." A little night music. Harold Prince, he wanted me to come and audition for A Little Night Music in the role of Carl Magnus. And I had read the script. There was no music at the time when he sent me the script, but it read really like an all-week play. So I thought, boy, this is a really great book. Hugh Wheeler had written the book. And I thought, well, Carl Magnus I've played in many different iterations during my career at that point. And I thought, but it's a chance to sing for Sondheim. I flew here to New York and went to the audition, sang for Hal and for Stephen. Talked to Hal the next day, and he said, "Did you read it?" I said, "Yeah." And I said, "And the lyric, especially Frederick's lyric in the opening, the one that I just said to you," and he said, "Yeah, well, that's the role we want you to play." And I said, "What? No, Hal. He's supposed to be, in his mid-40s, and I was only 30 at the time." And he said, "Nah, it's all right." He says, "It's a period piece. Nobody will ever even question it." So I went back to the Guthrie, flying high, and went in to see Michael Langham, our artistic director, and I said, "Michael, I've got this incredible opportunity, and we go into rehearsal in a month and a half." And Michael looked at him and said, "Well, that's pretty nice, but you can't do that." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because you're playing Oedipus the King in our next production. And it would mean you would open the play and then leave." So I had to call Mr. Prince and say, "Sorry, I can't do this, and this is why." 6 weeks later, my agent called me and said, "Are you sitting down?" Because they'd come back and they're going into rehearsal much later than they originally were, and they're offering it to you again. And so I went, wow. So I commuted between Minneapolis and New York in the dead of winter, never missed a performance of Oedipus, and never missed a rehearsal of Night Music. Anne Heche's debut, Neil Patrick Harris, he and I had done a film together before. And it was interesting because we were going to be a replacement company. We weren't just being patched into an existing company. We were our own company unto ourselves. So we had our own rehearsal period, and it was our own production. And it was Anne's debut on the stage. And she was a little nervous, and so she kind of looked to me to say, what am I doing wrong? And I said, you're doing nothing wrong at the moment. And I said, just, relax and try and think of it as a leading role in a film. At the curtain call, we came out, and I'll never forget Anne Heche's look. She came out to take her bow, and there was a standing ovation, and she was absolutely relaxed by this response. And that was kind of the launch period for her. Yeah, Sweeney Todd. Well, I think it's a genius work. Here's a mishap for you. One show, there was a bare stage, and Angela Lansbury, who was playing Mrs. Lovett, and myself were in partnership with this meat pie company. And our servant, Toby, finds out what we've been doing, making meat pies out of human beings. So I say, well, then we're going to have to eliminate Toby. So we go looking for Toby, and the stage was bare, and in a trapdoor, we came out onto this bare stage. And we were singing, Toby, where are you? Nothing's gonna harm you, not while I'm around, Toby. At this particular show, we come out and I hear a rattling sound. And I thought, what is that? It's just two of us on stage, and we're in spotlights. And I happen to look up, and I see the bridge starting to descend. And it's not supposed to be moving at all. And I hear this, and I walk over to Angela, and I take her downstage of this thing, but because we're on spotlights, the spotlights guy's now following us, but we're not supposed to be moving. Anyway, we move downstage, and behind us, the bridge comes all the way down to the deck and crashes onto the deck. And then the chains rattle down behind it. Everybody in the audience is going, and we stop, obviously. The lights come up. Stage manager says, well, we better go back and do it again. And so they stopped the show out, raised the back curtain, came out and got the thing and took it back, dropped the back curtain in again, and said, okay, let's do this again. And I came out onto the stage and I looked at the audience and said, take two. And everybody, I think, that I've ever met was at that performance.